Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me, and we're starting. It shouldn't have been that easy, but it was. Almost too easy, actually. If she had known it would be so easy, she might have done it much earlier. She wondered why she had waited so long to try it. Alex stretched languidly in her lover's bed. Turning on her right side, she got up and went into the bathroom. I turned on the shower, adjusted the temperature, and climbed into it. She was about to turn off the water when Trey entered the room, and she turned off the water while they were changing places. 15 minutes later, the couple was ready to work. The man leaned towards her, but the woman pulled back slightly so that his kiss would not smear the lipstick on her newly made up lips. "Calm down, my love. Let's stick to the plan, and then we can do this for a long time." She warned him. "I'm sorry, you're right," he replied. "It's just that your lips are so damn good to kiss." The woman smiled radiantly. At least for the first month, this part of her life went exactly as she had planned. She didn't expect anything less. Moreover, she expected it to last much longer. Some would call what Alex and Trey were doing on Wednesday afternoon an affair. She thought the term affair was too rude. Alex loves Trey and considers their Wednesday meetings to be more than just a vulgar affair. Alexis Temple wasn't looking for love when she found it for the second time. She had been happily married to Chris Temple for 12 years when 4 months earlier, she had met Trey Latham at an executive board meeting at Parkfield Hospital. Alexis is the HR director at Parkfield, and Trey is the new marketing representative at Riley Gordon, the hospital's public relations company. Trey was dressed in a charcoal gray striped suit, which was clearly tailored to his athletic body, standing 1.93 meters and weighing 102 kilograms. He has wavy and thick brown hair, and his big brown eyes flash when he speaks. When he looks at her, she feels a tingling sensation between her legs. Over the next few months, they talked several times before Alex realized that her feelings for Trey were more than superficial. It would be wrong to call it an affair. This is a relationship for which she has nothing to apologize for and feel guilty about. On Saturday afternoon, Chris Temple went to the mailbox and picked up a handful of letters and various correspondence that had been thrown there today. In a handful were 2 envelopes from the state of Indiana, which contained license plate stickers and printed registration documents for 2023. Chris tore open the envelope addressed to him, affixed a new sticker to his license plate, and put the registration in the glove compartment of his car. Then he opened the envelope addressed to his wife, put a new sticker on her license plate, and tried to put her registration in the glove compartment. But the glove compartment was locked. Who locks their glove compartment? Chris thought angrily as he returned to the house. He took his wife's car keys from the shelf, opened the glove compartment, and dropped the new registration in there. He closed the drawer and was about to leave when a crazy thought occurred to him. Chris opened the glove compartment again and looked inside. There he found the car's operating manual, the last 3 registrations, and a cell phone, and only he surprised him at that moment. "Damn," he muttered to himself. Chris knew his wife was upstairs in the shower. As has been the custom for the past 6 months, she returned home about 20 minutes earlier after a Saturday morning workout, and as usual immediately went to the shower. He slowly turned on the phone and waited until it was fully loaded, then looked at the call history. Since she didn't expect anyone to find her phone, she didn't clear her call history. There was a short list of calls, but a long list of text messages, all from a certain Trey Latham. Even before he looked at these texts, Chris realized that his 13-year marriage was over. Reading the messages did not change his mind at all. Chris turned off the phone, put it back in the glove compartment, and locked it again. After hanging his wife's keys back on the hanger, he listened for a second, hearing that the shower was still running upstairs. He went outside to mow the yard and think. The messages told Chris that his wife had been having an affair with Trey Latham for almost a year. He remembered that it was around this time that her late Wednesday nights at the office began. Apparently, she took a long lunch break and then added it to the end of the working day in order to have time to work. About 6 months ago, according to correspondence, they added Saturday morning to their playing days. Chris remembered that this coincided with the start of his wife's classes at the local gym. Tears welded up in my eyes. He slapped the handle of the lawnmower with both hands. Alex smiled when she heard the sound of a mower from the bedroom on the 2nd floor. She knew that Chris liked to mow the yard both for exercise and because he actually liked the look of a well-kept yard. Getting dressed to enjoy the rest of Saturday, she realized that she was really lucky. She had an adored husband and a hot young lover. It had been almost a year since Alex had expanded her love life to include Trey, and everything was going exactly as she had planned. Thanks to careful planning and good organization, her life has never been so full. A loving husband, 2 wonderful children, a great job, and a 29-year-old second husband filling in the emotional and physical gaps that she thought were in her marriage. Yes, there were moments when she felt almost depressed, but mostly she knew she was living life to the fullest. By taking a lover, a second love in fact, she completed what she wanted in life. She didn't take the easy way out. She lived her life to the fullest, it seemed to her. She was living life to the fullest that day, and that meant being able to make love to two different men on the same day. After making love with Trey, Alex always took a shower and cleaned herself thoroughly, so she had no problem if Chris initiated lovemaking with her on such evenings. In fact, after she made sure that her husband would not be able to find out that she had made love earlier in the day, she began to initiate it herself in order to get additional excitement from her own mischief. Alex and Trey's relationship was actually love, not just lust. The young man was warm and intelligent. His interests were different from those of her husband, which in her opinion made her life more eventful. Trey knew from the very beginning that she was married and loved her husband, but she had more than enough love to include Trey in her heart. Trey is 13 years younger than her husband and more strong-willed, both personally and physically. He has abs and about 14 kilograms of additional relief muscles on his body. That Saturday, Alex did not manage to make love with two men as Chris slipped away that evening, justifying himself with fatigue. She had to admit that he looked a little out of place when he entered the house after mowing. In fact, Chris was already pleased that he didn't throw up when she tried to start something. Lying. Facing Alex, he thought about how many times his wife had slipped him careless seconds. Chris was the vice president of finance at a medium-sized tool and die manufacturing company. He came to work at 7 o'clock every morning, put a capsule in the Keurig coffee maker, and rummaged through his email inbox. The plant officially started work at 8 o'clock. At 8:15 a.m., he walked into the office of production supervisor Bob Casey, a friend who had divorced his wife of 15 years 5 years ago. "Do you have a few minutes for something personal, Bob?" he asked, and when Bob nodded, Chris walked in and closed the door behind him. This can't be good, Bob decided. 5 minutes later, Bob had the whole story from Chris and was on the phone with his divorce lawyer, who was an old college friend of his. Bob's friend hosted Chris off schedule that same day. Alex was shocked when she was handed the divorce papers at the hospital the following Wednesday, when she returned from her date with Trey. She had no idea that her husband was unhappy in their marriage. She completely failed to notice the irony in how timely the documents were handed to her. While she was trying to piece it all together, it didn't even occur to her that Chris had found out about her relationship with Trey. As soon as she calmed down enough, Alex called her husband. Why, what is it?" she asked through tears. "What did I do wrong, really? Are you still asking? You've been having an affair for about a year now, and you still can't figure out why I'm divorcing you." Alex was stunned for the second time in a few minutes. She continued to sob, but she had no words for Chris, and he ended the conversation. As Chris expected, Alex was waiting for him at the house when he returned and did not stay at work as usual. "Will Mr. McCoy be offended with you for not making up the hours for that long lunch?" Chris asked, entering the house from the garage. "I love you, honey. You know, I'm sorry I didn't tell you about Trey, but I felt it would be better for everyone." Alex said, "For everyone? You and your lover aren't everything. What about me? Am I not a part of everyone?" "Yes, part of it," she said softly. "I guess I need to explain. You think," Chris chuckled, I didn't tell you about Trey because I knew you wouldn't understand." "And you'll ruin everything like you're doing now," she began. "Am I ruining everything? I'm so fucking sorry. What exactly am I spoiling?" Chris growled. "I wasn't looking for this relationship, Chris. It just happened. And I'm glad of it. Trey is a wonderful man. You'll like him if you get to know him better. This is much more than a novel. I love him as much as I love you, Chris, and I can't give up on him any more than I can on you." "But we're married. You can't love two men at the same time," Chris objected. "No, I can. Marriage does not mean that it is possible to automatically turn off your emotions. Turn off love. You are my first love. He's my second. I am capable of loving several men at the same time. It's not a question of one or the other," Alex said. "Trey understands that I already have a full life. He is ready to be satisfied with the little time that I have for him. You and the family get the lion's share of my time, as it should be. I didn't take anything away from you and the children. I just added something for myself besides you and the kids. Trey is not your husband. He is an interventionist. He should be grateful for any time he gets from you, but I'm your husband and you have 2 children. All this time should be given to us," Chris said. "I love my life the way it is now, and I don't want to change anything." "I need you all," Alex said. "I don't want to get divorced, yes, but I also didn't want my wife to sleep with another man. Apparently, we don't always get everything we want." Chris said, "Do you remember the words to love, honor, and cherish? That's how you talk about it." "It's dirty, disgusting," Alex said. "From your point of view, maybe. On my side, there definitely is," Chris said. "Ah," she growled. The argument ended when the couple's 2 children came downstairs to greet their father. Both parents knew that their children had heard the stormy conversation. The children, 13-year-old Josh and 10-year-old Kayla, looked very awkward. I'm sorry you had to hear that, Chris said. In the future, we will try to behave more like adults. But yes, we're getting divorced. We both still love you, and you guys had nothing to do with our breakup. I agree with everything your father said except that there won't be a divorce, Alex said. He won't be so selfish as to ruin your lives because something happened to him. He's not going to ruin your life because he didn't change it, Chris said. Mom, did you cheat on Dad? How could you? Kayla screamed. Alex grimaced in displeasure. She looked first at her daughter, then at her husband. Watch your mouth, Kay. I'm still your mother, Alex rasped. Only because I can't divorce you, the girl shouted back and ran upstairs to her room. Well, that was nice. Chris told no one in particular. I think we need to have a family meeting while we're eating. Josh, bring your sister so we can talk. While Alex sat and looked at the other 3 members of her family, they openly discussed her infidelity and the impending divorce. He told the children that he was applying for joint custody instead of allowing Alex to take them into his custody. You can't take the kids away from me, Chris, she screamed, and I'm not going to, but you won't get primary custody either. You can't cheat on me and make me a father just for the weekend, he snapped. So who is the guy you're cheating on Dad with? Josh asked his mother. This is hardly appropriate, young man. Alex began. I think it's very appropriate, Chris interjected. The kids are old enough to hear the truth no matter what you want. Chris spent a few minutes telling the children everything he had learned about Trey Latham over the past week. Alex was surprised by how much her husband knew about her lover. He had already got into the habit of surprising her, and he was not shy about telling his children about what he had learned. Alex spent most of this part of the conversation looking at her plate. There will be no divorced children. I just need to get your father to look at everything right, Alex said, taking the empty plate and glass and walking into the kitchen. Both children looked at Chris, who shrugged his shoulders. They both knew their father well enough to understand that he was not the kind of man who would put up with a cheating wife. After finishing dinner, the children immediately headed to their rooms, but not before Josh said, "We're here if you need us, Dad." "We'll talk, but we don't want to get in the way of stray bullets, if you know what I mean." "Thanks, guys, I appreciate that," Chris replied. After dinner, the family usually gathered in the common room to watch a movie or several TV shows, unless the children were busy doing homework. Alex was sitting in the living room, ostensibly reading a book, when Chris went to the common room to watch the program-owned game. He smiled to himself as he sat down at the table, knowing that Alex hadn't read a book in months. Sitting in the living room, Alex held back tears, thinking and turning the page of the book from time to time to give the impression that she was reading. 6 hours ago, she thought she had the perfect life. Now she understood that her marriage was hanging by a thread, and her ideal life will go downhill if she can't get her husband to understand what she wants, what he needs. Chris exposed her relationship with Trey as vulgar, almost base, although in fact it's not like that at all according to Alex. Her husband is a good man, maybe even wonderful, but he is not without flaws, weaknesses if you like. The appearance of Trey in her life filled in these gaps, and their bedtime was a manifestation of their love, not the satisfaction of lust. Well, mostly she had to admit. She hid her relationship with Trey from Chris because she knew her husband would never allow it, but now that he found out it looked like it wrong, Alex thought she'd thought through all the details to keep her relationship with Trey a secret. She provided for all the little things, including the fact that their lives remained almost the same as before the appearance of Trey, without increasing or decreasing the number and intensity of their lovemaking. She was racking her brain, trying to figure out how her ignorant husband suddenly figured this out. Until a few hours ago, Alex considered herself a smarter spouse, in part because she had been able to hide her relationship with Trey for almost a year. She had to admit that the first time Chris had enjoyed her body a few hours after Trey had not only aroused her more than ever, but also made her feel his superiority. Trey seemed quite happy with the state of his relationship with Alex. Although she is 13 years older than him, she has the body of a much younger woman, a beautiful face, and is intelligent and sociable. He was surprised at how quickly he managed to get this seemingly happily married woman into bed. She made it clear that she was not only interested in gymnastics on the mattress, although she did not seek to replace her husband. This was more than acceptable to Trey, who was enjoying the freedom of a bachelor. The only request Trey had made to her was to add a second day to their weekly dates. At first, Alex refused, but a month later she enthusiastically agreed, and so Alex's Saturday classes began. Trey tried to pretend to sympathize with Alex's situation when they met for lunch at a restaurant located far from home, where they sometimes met to eat. She called the young man to make an appointment shortly after she arrived at her office. "Honestly, Alex, if you get divorced, it will give us more time to communicate. It's not that bad for me," Trey said, taking a bite of his sandwich. "But I know you don't want a divorce. Do we really have to break up?" "I hope not. He's always been reasonable, and I know he still loves me. So if I can appeal to his sense of justice, I'll be able to get him to see things my way," Alex said. If I had a choice, I wouldn't give up any part of you, Trey cut in. Why should your husband, because he loves me, and I just need to make him understand that maintaining the status quo makes me happy, and it doesn't affect our love for each other, she said. But until I can convince him, I think we need to calm down a little. It would only hurt the case if I looked like I was shoving his face into it. Chris wasn't surprised when Alex didn't show up for her workout on Saturday morning. He knew she was smart enough to step back, at least visually, from her relationship with Trey. However, he just needed to poke the bear to gauge her reaction. You might as well go to your lover right now, baby. I've already filed for divorce, and I'm not going to change my mind, Chris said as he and Alex sat in the common room and their children were outside. Just because you applied doesn't mean you can't change your mind, honey, she said. Do you love me, Chris? And the children more or less than me? What is it? She asked quickly. Alex caught him off guard. She could see the wheels turning in his head, trying to find the right answer. I love you all the same, but in different ways. You know that. What are you getting at? Chris asked. The fact that people can love many people on different levels, different and identical at the same time, she said. I love you, the kids, and Trey. Everyone is the same and at the same time in different ways. I cannot give up my love for any of you. I love you, Chris, and I need you. You are my husband, and as the father of my children, you can have me most of the time. But I also love Trey in a different way and at the same time the same way as you. But since he is not a member of our family, he has to make do with less of my time. Although he would have liked more, he accepted the role. If you love me as much as you always say you do, you would graciously accept your dominant role and be happy, both for yourself and for me. But you're stubbornly ignoring the obvious, Al, Chris said. Trey is not part of our family, so he cannot be loved to the same extent as the children and I, and should not receive a minority role in this family structure. Family is what we say, Alex said. I want to include him in ours. I am a good wife and mother. Of course, you can give me that little bit if you love me as much as you say you do. Of course, I can't. I won't let you go outside our family to take a lover, and for your information, I don't love you as much as I did 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, you can't stop loving someone overnight, but your blatant disrespect for me over the past year has severely undermined my reserves of love, Chris said. I wasn't disrespectful to you. I love you as much as ever, Alex declared. So you've never loved me as much as I love you. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to have a lover, Chris said. He's more than a lover. He's like a second husband, she said. Yes, the younger husband. I see, Chris muttered. Chris slept on the couch in the common room every night, despite his wife's constant persuasions to return to their bedroom. We can't talk unless we're in the same bedroom at night, she said. Alex's eyes grew big when at their first meeting with the lawyers, Chris's lawyer talked about selling the house and dividing up the property. You can't be serious. I don't want to get divorced, Alex said. Well, it's going to happen, so get used to it. We need to sell the house so we can both afford something bigger than a closet, Chris said. Good, you've won. Alex practically screamed, I'll leave him, I promise. As if I can trust your promises, you had no problem breaking our oath. I don't understand why I should trust your promises. You'll figure out how I won't catch you next time and you'll cheat behind my back, Chris said. It's not about winning, you stupid woman. I lost it. Our children lost. Alex lowered her head in shame. And if I let you have a toy, are we going to be even? What is it? She asked. You just don't understand, Al. I probably wanted to, just you and me. Chris felt uneasy when his father, in-law and mother-in-law called a week later and asked why they were divorcing their daughter. He decided that since they were her parents, she should have told them. He always got along well with Alex's parents, calling them mom and dad the same as his parents. I'm really sorry, guys, he said sadly. I didn't call because I thought Alex would tell you. You know what they say when you assume. His father, in-law, gasped when Chris told them both that their daughter was cheating on him with Trey Latham. Are you sure, son? That doesn't sound like my girl, George Taylor said breathlessly. Well, that's not exactly cheating, George. She loves them both, and she doesn't want to get divorced, Velma Taylor said. The two mouths opened wide in shock a mile apart. What the hell is going on here, Velma? George snapped. What do you know about it? He's a good guy, George. You would have liked him. She doesn't cheat. She loves them both, Velma said. What the hell are you talking about, Velma? Explain everything quickly and clearly. Otherwise, there will be a second divorce, George said. Chris's mother-in-law apparently knew about Alex's infidelities, but continued to insist that it was not cheating because her daughter loves both men. It's not cheating, it's polyamory, Velma said confidently. Well, if it's polyamory, then why don't I have anyone on my side? And why do I seem to be the only one who hasn't been told about these plans? Well, apparently me and Dad, Chris said. She cheated on Chris and you didn't say anything. I have to give you a shot, Vel, George said. I'm sorry, son. He's a good guy, George. You'll see it when you get to know him, Velma said. Will you get acquainted? I don't want to meet my daughter's boyfriend. He wouldn't make love to a married woman if he was such a nice guy, George said. Thanks for understanding, Dad, Chris said. Trey held back his personal celebration at the end of his divorce from Alex, trying to look concerned, but in fact he wanted to jump and scream. After a year in which he aspired to spend more time with his personal milk, the mom I would blow in English, he was going to fulfill his wish once every 2 weeks, since Alex and Chris would receive their children for a week each. Alex tried her best not to date Trey the first week Chris had the kids, but after crying for a week, she practically asked to spend a week with Trey the next time Chris was with the kids. That first Monday when Alex stayed the night, Trey cooked dinner and dessert for the first time since they were together. Trey ordered at his favorite Italian restaurant, and everything was ready when Alex stopped by his place after work. Wow, candles and everything else, that's very kind, Trey. A girl can get used to this kind of treatment, Alex said. Trey played Alex's favorite classical music on the stereo for the entire dinner. She smiled broadly at the young man, noting to herself that her now ex-husband loves only classic rock. She smiled even wider when, after the meal was over, he lifted her to her feet and spun her around in a slow dance to several compositions. They cleaned themselves up and retired to Trey's bedroom, where they spent the rest of the night making love, first gently and then more energetically. Maybe, after all, a divorce wouldn't be so bad, she thought to herself. Trey was thrilled when he woke up in the morning with Alex in his arms. 20 minutes and one position changed later. They were lying face to face, breathing heavily from exertion. Damn it, I'm going to be late if I don't hurry, Alex said. Well, let's save time by taking a shower together, Trey suggested, raising his eyebrows. It's definitely not going to save time, Alex replied. I promise to be quick. On Friday evening, they found themselves together for the first time in a restaurant in public. Alex was wearing a short red dress that she had bought especially for the occasion. Damn it, woman, you're gorgeous, Trey said. Alex felt moisture between her legs several times during the evening. She knew she looked beautiful, and she and Trey were an attractive couple. Several times during the evening, she saw men staring at her. Alex was physically tired when she left Trey's house late Sunday evening to pick up the kids from Chris's house. She and Trey made love late on Friday night, 4 times on Saturday, and 2 more times on Sunday. Having a 29-year-old partner on a permanent basis was physically much more difficult than Alex was used to. A month later, Alex dragged herself back to the car to pick up the children. As has become customary, she was quite satisfied. But on the way home, she felt that she was missing something. It seemed that the more time she spent with Trey, the more their relationship developed and deteriorated emotionally. She rubbed her right wrist, reminding herself of the scratch she'd gotten when Trey had handcuffed her to the headboard, a new experience for her. When Trey took out the handcuffs, she expressed reluctance, but he quickly dealt with it. After that, she lay down separately from the young man, noting to herself that Chris had never made her feel like an equal partner in bed. She mentally brushed it off, deciding that it was probably just a generational difference between her ex-husband and her lover. Despite the fact that the children knew about Trey in the weeks when she had children, Alex communicated with him only a couple of times a week and always during working hours. She has not yet introduced her second love to the children. On Wednesday, when Alex called, Trey did not answer the phone or return calls. When he didn't call at noon on Thursday, she got worried and called him on the work phone. The receptionist at Riley Gordon wasn't too keen to talk about where Trey was, until Alex confessed that she was Trey's girlfriend and couldn't get in touch with him. He's been in the hospital since Tuesday night, the girl on the other end of the phone said. Apparently, he got into some kind of fight near his favorite sports bar and was very badly injured. Perhaps that's why you couldn't reach him. The receptionist gave Alex the necessary information, and a few minutes later she was on her way to the hospital. 15 minutes later, she was looking at Trey's battered face. Why didn't you call me? I found out about it 2 days later from your administrator, Alex said. Because of his injuries, Alex couldn't decipher the expression in Trey's eyes. He had a broken nose, 2 black eyes, and as she found out 2 broken ribs and bruised testicles. Because your ex-husband did it to me, I know that, Trey muttered. That unscrupulous bastard didn't do it himself. He paid someone. He will pay for everything when the police take these 2 thugs. No, this can't be happening, Trey. Chris is too good to do that. He's the kind of guy who divorced me as soon as possible, but would never hurt anyone. I think that's why I thought I could have 2 husbands, Alex said. Yes, and what came of it? Trey growled. I'm telling you, he's a weakling, not as good a guy as you think he is. He'll end up in jail. I won't stand on ceremony with him just because he's the father of your children. I'm sure he didn't do it, but still, Trey, you should have called me. I shouldn't have found out about it 2 days after something happened. Considering how cold and calculating Chris was when he filed for divorce, Alex couldn't be sure that her ex-husband didn't have a hand in beating Trey. And if this is not the case, then she will have to admit that she is partly to blame for the beating. What the hell, Chris, does your ego feel better now? Alex shouted at her ex when he answered the phone that day. What the fuck are you shouting for? Chris said softly in response, wondering what his ex-wife was babbling about. Nice try, Chris. Trey is very angry and in a lot of pain, and when the cops get you, you're going to jail. I won't be able to calm him down, she said. Whatever you say, Chris replied and ended the conversation, still not understanding what Alex was shouting about. Alex had to admit that Chris actually looked puzzled by what she was saying. She wondered when he had managed to pretend to be innocent so well. What an irony. The police showed up at Chris's house about 20 minutes after he spoke to Alex on the phone. I made fresh coffee. I've been waiting for you guys since my ex called a few minutes ago. Judging by what she said, I assume that something happened to her beloved second husband, and I'm suspect number one, Chris said. Chris poured coffee for both officers and patiently answered questions for about 15 minutes. As they left, the officers agreed that it didn't look like the jilted ex-husband was a suitable suspect. A month later, the police excluded Chris from the list of suspects in Trey's beating. A few weeks after that, Chris and his father-in-law were quietly sitting in a bar on the outskirts of the city, enjoying a couple of glasses of rye Angel's Envy. Thanks, Dad. I owe you a lot, Chris said quietly. The damn police were absolutely sure that I was involved in beating this stupid bastard. Yes, you were such an obvious target that they just couldn't ignore you, but you don't owe me anything. I owe you this for what my stupid daughter did to you. You've been a good husband and a great father to my grandchildren. George Taylor said, I'll tell you what, from now on you'll have to buy drinks. I can get used to this expensive drink. Both clinked glasses and took a sip of the amber liquid. 2 months after the attack on Trey, Alex didn't have bedtime love so much that she almost couldn't stand it. She met another young man for whom she had feelings, and although it wasn't love, she wanted to know I needed it in physical proximity. From the fact that only a few months ago, 2 husbands provided intimacy to the fact that she had not had intimacy for 2 months, Alex was desperate. She thought about discussing the issue with Trey, but their relationship was no longer as close as it was before the attack, and since he didn't mind being the second man in a polyamorous relationship when she was married to Chris, he should not mind being the first man in such a relationship. For her own peace of mind, she decided that if necessary, she would ask for forgiveness later, but would not be the first to seek permission. Delman LaFleur was almost as big as Trey, 1 meter 98 kilograms, and looked maybe even a little better, although not so rude. He grew up in New Orleans, and he had a mix of Cajun and old-fashioned Southern accents. He is 25 years old, he is more polite, but less arrogant than Trey. R works as a junior manager at one of the local firms, and from the moment Alex met him in line at a nearby Starbucks a few months ago, she wondered if he could replace her ex-husband in the new polyamorous trio. I decided it was time to find out. By the time Trey regained the physical ability to make love, Delman had firmly assumed the former role of Alex's second husband. Alex met with her second boyfriend twice a week in the weeks when she had children. They were old enough to take care of themselves for the few hours that she was not at home on Wednesday evenings and Saturday mornings, as she did when she was married. Equally important, Trey didn't need to know more about Delman than Chris did about Trey, at least until he somehow finds out about it, Alex noted. Chris and Alex's lives only intersected when the parents handed over the children to each other as part of a custody agreement and at some school events. Chris was cordial with Alex when they talked, while Alex was constantly trying to win over her ex-husband. It was the children who informed Chris that his ex-wife had returned to polyamorous life about 6 months after it became a fact. Josh and Kayla casually mentioned that they often did Saturday chores early while their mother was at the gym to spend the rest of the day with friends away from her. Hey, she's still your mother, no matter what she did to me. Be respectful and considerate, Chris said. It's not just what she did to you, Dad. She destroyed our family, Josh said flatly. Chris had to admit that his son was assessing the situation correctly, but what made him raise his eyebrows and thought was the information that his ex was telling the children again, that she went to the gym on Saturday mornings. Chris never told the children exactly when their mother cheated on him, and as children they never asked about it themselves. Chris postponed this information until next week when Alex will have the children. He borrowed a friend's car and parked a block from Alex's house with 2 Dunkin' Donuts and a cup of coffee. She was already soaked, remembering the morning with Delman, and did not suspect that she was being followed. Chris smiled as he watched Alex park, his car on the street in front of a house, divided into 2 apartments. He wrote down the address while finishing his second donut with Bavarian cream, and looked up just in time to see a large young man in only sports shorts greet his ex with a gentle kiss on the lips at the door. She definitely likes the big ones and the young ones, Chris said aloud, watching what was happening. Chris picked up the phone, pressed the button several times, and found out the young man's name. A few more taps and he got a lot more information and giggled happily. Thanks, Google, he said. Trey Latham did not recognize the caller's number that appeared on his phone. I thought about sending a call to a voice message, but then decided to answer. Trey Latham, how can I help you? He replied confidently, You can't help me, asshole, but I can help you. Chris said without introducing himself, What the fuck do you want, you bastard? Isn't it a little late to apologize to me? Trey growled into the phone. I have no reason to apologize to you, Chris said, but for selfish reasons, I'm going to do you a favor you don't deserve. Do you know where your favorite girl is now? I take it you know, Trey snapped. Isn't she with your damn kids? Well, she's with the baby but not with mine. She definitely has her type. He's a big bastard, probably the same height as you but a little younger, Chris grinned. Let's say I believe you. Who is this bastard? Trey asked. According to Google, he is Delman LaFleur, lives at 1002, 134 William Street. You'll have to figure out the rest yourself. I'm out of coffee, Chris said. Alex barely had time to enter Trey's house on Monday after work when Trey attacked her. Only this time not literally but figuratively. What the hell, Alex? Trey shouted. How long has this been going on? I've already told you that I will never share you. A little hypocritical of you, don't you think? The woman grinned back. It was okay for you to interfere in my marriage with my husband, but now that you have become my number one, you don't want anyone to interfere in your marriage. We have been together for several months now. It started when you were incapacitated. I have feelings for him just like I do for you. If your husband, the one who was really married to you, left you because of this, then why do you think that I will stay with you because of such disrespect? Trey asked. You're a great ass, Alex, but no girl is worth that much shit. It won't be difficult for me to replace you, but you love me. You said you loved me, the woman screamed. Probably not enough, he replied. 2 weeks later, Trey was standing in the urinal in his office when second boyfriend twice a week in the weeks when she had children. They were old enough to take care of themselves for the few hours that she was not at home on Wednesday evenings and Saturday mornings as she did when she was married. Equally important, Trey didn't need to know more about Delman than Chris did about Trey. At least until he somehow finds out about it, Alex noted. Chris and Alex's lives only intersected when the parents handed over the children to each other as part of a custody agreement and at some school events. Chris was cordial with Alex when they talked, while Alex was constantly trying to win over her ex-husband. It was the children who informed Chris that his ex-wife had returned to polyamorous life about 6 months after it became a fact. Josh and Kayla casually mentioned that they often did Saturday chores early while their mother was at the gym to spend the rest of the day with friends away from her. Hey, she's still your mother, no matter what she did to me. Be respectful and considerate, Chris said. It's not just what she did to you, Dad. She destroyed our family, Josh said flatly. Chris had to admit that his son was assessing the situation correctly. But what made him raise his eyebrows and thought was the information that his ex was telling the children again that she went to the gym on Saturday mornings. Chris never told the children exactly when their mother cheated on him, and as children they never asked about it themselves. Chris postponed this information until next week when Alex will have the children. He borrowed a friend's car and parked a block from Alex's house with 2 Dunkin' Donuts and a cup of coffee. She was already soaked, remembering the morning with Delman, and did not suspect that she was being followed. Chris smiled as he watched Alex park, his car on the street in front of a house divided into 2 apartments. He wrote down the address while finishing his second donut with Bavarian cream, and looked up just in time to see a large young man in only sports shorts greet his ex with a gentle kiss on the lips at the door. She definitely likes the big ones and the young ones, Chris said aloud, watching what was happening. Chris picked up the phone, pressed the button several times, and found out the young man's name. A few more taps, and he got a lot more information and giggled happily. Thanks, Google, he said. Trey Latham did not recognize the caller's number that appeared on his phone. I thought about sending a call to a voice message, but then decided to answer. Trey Latham, how can I help you? He replied confidently, You can't help me, asshole, but I can help you. Chris said without introducing himself, What the fuck do you want, you bastard? Isn't it a little late to apologize to me? Trey growled into the phone. I have no reason to apologize to you, Chris said. But for selfish reasons, I'm going to do you a favor you don't deserve. Do you know where your favorite girl is now? I take it you know, Trey snapped. Isn't she with your damn kids? Well, she's with the baby but not with mine. She definitely has her type. He's a big bastard, probably the same height as you but a little younger, Chris grinned. Let's say I believe you. Who is this bastard? Trey asked. According to Google, he is Delman LaFleur, lives at 1002, 134 William Street. You'll have to figure out the rest yourself. I'm out of coffee, Chris said. Alex barely had time to enter Trey's house on Monday after work when Trey attacked her. Only this time not literally but figuratively. What the hell, Alex? Trey shouted. How long has this been going on? I've already told you that I will never share you. A little hypocritical of you, don't you think? The woman grinned back. It was okay for you to interfere in my marriage with my husband, but now that you have become my number one, you don't want anyone to interfere in your marriage. We have been together for several months now. It started when you were incapacitated. I have feelings for him just like I do for you. If your husband, the one who was really married to you, left you because of this, then why do you think that I will stay with you because of such disrespect? Trey asked, "You're a great ass, Alex, but no girl is worth that much shit. It won't be difficult for me to replace you, but you love me. You said you loved me," the woman screamed. "Probably not enough," he replied. 2 weeks later, Trey was standing in the urinal in his office when